Are. Hello, everybody. My name is Eustacia Yu, and I'm the facilitator in the Office of Internationalization, Office of Research, and Office of Teaching and Learning. I would like to welcome you to this symposium hosted by the Office of Internationalization on the occasion of the International Education Week. I'm so excited to see so many of you joining us today. The International Education Week has been celebrated since 2000 by countries around the world, showcasing the impact that international education has in preparing students for the world and supporting international engagement efforts. This week marks the 21st anniversary of International Education Week. I'm now turning this over to Dr. Roswitha Dressler for an overview of today's symposium, and I also have her introduce our two guest speakers.
Thanks, Eustacia.
Sorry, I just want to introduce you a little bit.
Even better. Okay.
The director of our Teaching Across Borders program. She's also a member of the Werklund International Advisory Committee. Over to you, Dr. Dressler.
Oh, thank you. You can tell I was excited. I jumped right in there. So thanks, Eustacia. We have a really interesting symposium for you today. We're going to have two speakers. Our first speaker is going to be Wilson Depaiva. He was a postdoctoral fellow here before I even got a chance to go to Brazil. So we were just talking about that today. I think it was about 5 years ago. And he was here for an entire year working with Dr. John Friesen. And from that time that he was here, a wonderful relationship has grown in that we have, we first started our relationship through Teaching Across Borders with a placement in Brazil. And then we are now signing a new agreement with the university that he is currently at, which is still in the same city. And I will let him tell you the name of it because I'm worried about pronouncing it wrong, but I always speak of it as the Federale. And then after Dr. Depaiva has a chance to speak for 15 minutes, we'll have a chance to ask a couple of questions, probably 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll move on to our second speaker, Samuel Agapa. Again, my apologies if I mispronounced your last name there, Samuel. We are hoping to be able to welcome Dr. Colleen Kowaluk, the Associate Dean International, back into our midst at about the halfway point of the symposium. I'm beginning it because she was called off to a central university meeting, and so she's really hoping to be a part of this. She's excited about this event as well. So she sends her apologies for having to go to another meeting, but she is going to do her best to be here at about the halfway point. If not, you'll see my smiling face as well as we change between speakers. So in order to give our speakers enough time to talk, we're going to turn the microphone over to Dr. Depaiva and ask him to speak about how COVID has impacted his university in Brazil. Welcome, Wilson.
Oh, thank you very much, Roswitha. I also want to greet Diane Gerlich, who was there, and I was in blackout for some seconds. Well, hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you all. I would like to thank your attention and the invitation. I was really flattered to be invited to participate in this event. Although we are physically so far apart, thanks to technology and connectivity, we can be virtually together. That's a good thing. And it is always a pleasure to link with Werklund School of Education. I really miss my days as visiting professors at the University of Calgary during the year of 2014, right, yeah. I hereby thank Dr. Kavalilak, my dear friend, for the invitation. It's nice to be with you, Colleen. She'll be there, I think. It's very nice also to work with colleagues and to contribute somehow to the International Education Week. Colleen has been to Goiânia, our city, and I offered her a typical Brazilian barbecue at home. You know, Brazilian hospitality is well known throughout the world, as is our barbecue. I hope she has enjoyed it, as well as Roswitha, who had the same hospitality chez moi before that. As to the title proposed, International Perspectives on Navigating the Challenges of COVID-19, it is really important to share the experiences we are having during these difficult times of social isolation, quarantine, pandemic, and even loss of our dear ones. It helps us to strive against the odds as we are talking and discussing about those topics. We have to agree that COVID-19 virus is spread quite quickly with a worrying mortality rate. It crossed the borders and became a world pandemic with a high probability of fatality amongst infected individuals in a speed that we have never expected or foreseen. It's been, I think, a real challenge to all of us, mostly when we think about our losses. By the way, I think that we are considering gains and losses while navigating across this kind of a rough sea, if I can use the metaphor of your title. Like a turbulent and a high tide, COVID-19 caught us by surprise and changed the course of everything. Personally, I have two scenarios, not only Brazil, but two scenarios to consider. France, since I was in Paris when this pandemic struck, and Brazil, the place where I am now and the place I live. I must confess that the pandemic has woken me up from a very nice dream I was savoring. I was developing a research as visiting scholar at the University of Sorbonne, one of the most prestigious in the world, you know, as a result of a long relationship with French colleagues about the role of aesthetics on education, thought of Rousseau, the 18th century philosopher. The grant has been awarded in the beginning of 2019 by the same agency that sponsored my stay there in Calgary. So by the end of the year, my wife and I were in our kind of second honeymoon, strolling along the Champs-Élysées Avenue. Everything was going fine, and so the lockdown came, and we had no alternative that come back home in the end of March. Since then, we've been coping with quarantine, social distancing, isolation. My wife got the virus, but now fully recovered. And some weird situations that we are dealing with now that, in my opinion, highlights the fragility of the human condition we have, biological, cultural, and social. The control measures started here in Brazil with a lockdown throughout the country, with restricted opening only to convenience stores, drugstore, hospitals, and bakeries, all supposedly under the World Health Organization recommendations, the use of masks, hand sanitizer, and queuing, forming queues, lines. I think that for better or worse, the lockdown began to lose strength, and flexibilization started in September, after a long political fight amongst the president, our president, the governors, and the Supreme Court. Mayors and governors choose a different approach to the crisis. Some of them were harsh, some have loosened the social isolation, some defended the use of chloroquine, and the others condemned it, and so on and on. But now, after this chaotic situation, it is almost back to normal. Last Sunday, for instance, we had our midterm elections, and apart from the use of masks, gel, and etc., everyone was on the streets to vote. And they were just crowding, and now they are crowding back to commemorate their victory. And in the same way, we have seen crowds pro-Biden and pro-Trump in the United States, the same scenario. Fortunately, every school, in terms of education, every school in the country has been closed, locked down since March. The academic year, halted then, has reopened in September, but in remote ways, mostly by internet. You know, different from Canada, our academic year starts in February and then ends in December. Then we have just resumed the first semester of 2020, which shall end by January. The second semester of 2020 starts in February of 2021. I mean, we are delayed by one semester. I see that as a problem of bureaucracy and technology poverty. In France, as soon as the university was closed, the students started having remote classes after a week. In Brazil, it took 5 months with no activity because our institutions are not prepared to cope with technological advances and to different channels of learning. No one was prepared, and no one is now yet well equipped to it. Neither the university, nor the professors, nor the students. Before this happened, the university was already using an open source learning platform, which is the Moodle, but there was no success in using it. Now we are trying to cope with many problems and challenges. The use of the platform is one of them. Just to summarize our problems, I would like to make some comments on certain points I consider important to understand the whole situation. First, in order to give you an overview, at present moment, everyone is working at home. The professors are trying to use as many platforms they can, like Moodle, Google Classroom, Zoom, and others, in order to manage classes, the synchronous activities. We also try to use the WhatsApp, Instagram, and email to manage the asynchronous assignments. One may ask in this situation, are they learning? Well, I don't know. It is hard to check a real learning even in a face-to-face class. Now imagine by remote ways. I don't know. During our online classes, we keep asking, hey, turn your cam on, turn your mic on. It's not working. It's the common answer we got. When they answer, are they lying? I don't know. We never know if the students are really connected. I mean, literally and metaphorically. We do not have the type of students you do in Canada. Let me give you an example. When I was in Calgary as visiting professor and postdoc fellow, it happened to be late one day. I arrived at the classroom about 3 minutes late, and the students had started the class by themselves. They organized the seats in U format, and they were already discussing the text among them. One of them took over and established a connection on the internet to a forum about the topic. And the group was discussing with dozens of people around the world and taking notes on their laptops. That's a scenario that would never happen here in Brazil. And a big part of our students are interested in just the certification, nothing else. It's a big problem we have. There is an aggravating thing. Due to the general low income rate, the students cannot afford purchasing good computers or smartphones, and also cannot pay for a fast and stable internet. The university has provided tablets for the needy ones, but not all of them have access to the internet or good connectivity and so on. Anyway, the platforms are not a viable way because the many flaws they have. Google Meet, Zoom, Moodle, Google Classroom, they get crashed, jammed, and always lose data. Well, to do my part, I try everything. I scan books, chapters, articles, I send them by email to the students. I use the WhatsApp and every channel available. Nonetheless, I think it is useless to create many channels because you can overload the students. They got jobs, they have responsibilities, and they don't have much time to dedicate themselves fully to the course. Some relatives, and it's another example of the problem we have, got the virus, and the students had to dedicate themselves to help them. Myself, I have helped a grad student on master program with money so that he could travel up north in order to help his sick parents. In general terms, crowding and lack of awareness of the problem is the worst, which is something we see in many parts of the world, like France. You know, the virus has been detected since November of last year, and the carnival happened here and there in France normally, like nothing was going on. In March, when I was there, I saw the Luxembourg Park full of people, crowding of people. Another thing that I would add to my list is distrust and fear. Still in France, since I could not deliver the books back to the library, I took them to my supervisor's house. When walking the path to reach her doorsteps, her neighbors run away from me. And in a worst scenario, when we got back home in Brazil, our neighbors waved to us from a 50 meters distance and avoided to talk to us even by phone. That's a problem, right? Cultural problem. And by the social side, in Brazil, many of the social distance and hygiene measures adopted are not feasible or only partially applicable in the areas where the poorest populations live. We estimate that between 12 and 18 million people live in subnormal agglomerates, the slums, favelas in Portuguese, which which combine characteristics such as narrow and irregular circulation routes, precarious housing, insufficient supply of essential public services such as water supply. So it's not a reality only of the favelas, but of many municipalities across the country. In Goiânia, in our capital, but not different from the rest of the territory, there has been critical shortage of supply chain for personal needs. Many students' parents are informal workers with no social security. They got no money. Although the federal government has created an emergency financial aid, it hasn't been enough. But one of the worst problems, it's been the political use of the virus. Many mayors and governors embezzled money to buy overpriced respirators and other equipment. And now a big fight over the possible vaccine, the one who are for the vaccine from China and the ones who are for the vaccine from England. And it's a crazy thing. Finally, I don't know if I have time, but finally, back to the virtual life, I also want to highlight that there is a lot of tension among people, which is easily channeled through social media. Since people are distant from each other, they feel free to say anything. They easily swear, curse, and answer each other in a rude way, worsening social tension. But apart from that, COVID, I think, has taught us a key lesson. Even in a chaotic situation, we can strive and go on if we keep up in our resilience. I think we're going to overpass that. Brazilians are a resilient people. We are an example of that. By the way, one thing that's been hard for us is the personal distance. No handshaking, no hugging, no kissing. It's been terrible. I try my way. In the middle of all of it, I have decided to grasp every opportunity to give a good class, to make the students learn, go on, and seize the day, with or without any pestilence. Personally, I pass my days gardening, reading, painting, and writing. Now I'm writing a book with 5 short stories about the pandemics along West world history. We have to face the problem with our chins up and go on. That's what I think. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Wilson. That was very interesting, especially for those of us who have connections to Brazil and can kind of visualize where you are at. But we hear from what you've said a lot of commonalities and then some very unique situations that are perhaps unique to Brazil or countries that are in a similar situation to Brazil. So if you want to use the clap hands features to give a round of applause to our first speaker, and we'll open up the floor for questions. I invite you to unmute or raise your hand to ask a question, and I will moderate until such time as we're moving on to the next speaker.
There's a couple comments there, Roswitha, if you want to read them in the chat.
Yeah, can I get you two, because it's hard
Sure.
to do the chat for me and the other things. So
Okay. Wilson, Diane Garlick said, thank you for your talk. Sorry she had to leave. She said it was fascinating to hear about some of the significant barriers regarding the restart of universities in Brazil she did not know about, and can't imagine the hardship that would have had you and your colleagues would have had. Sorry.
Can I jump in, please? Dr. Diane Gerlach is our dean, so she was here. We should actually let
yeah,
you.
I think Wilson has met Diane, so I think that.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay. Good.
well, go ahead, Jude.
Sorry, we have one more question. David Scott is asking, what were some of the debates going on behind the scenes when your institution was moving online?
Before answering David, there is an interesting remark by Lily Jordan.
Oh.
I'm originally from Colombia, and there are some similar situations happening there. Yes,
Thank you.
all countries in South America, I think that they are facing the same problem. And David, behind the scenes, behind the curtains, I think every professor is trying to cope with the problem. There are some ones that have difficulties, of course. They have problem with technology. They have problem with this new situation we are living in. But the big debate, I think, is on the political level, because many politicians are using this, this situation, this pandemic situation, this almost of a plague, to gain control, to gain profit, political profit. That's, I think, that it is the big debate we are having now.
Okay, and there's another question, Wilson, in the chat. Experience in Alberta schools points to a rise in anxiety and fatigue. What are you seeing in Brazil along those lines, you know, with your connections? You may not have direct connections with schools, but through your connections.
It's Timothy.
Yeah,
Carol.
Timothy's question.
Is he or she is he from Calgary or no?
I'm assuming he's from Calgary. Timothy, feel free to unmute if you want to.
Yes, definitely from Calgary, yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a big problem that I didn't mention with a focus or emphasis, because I think it's normal throughout the world. Everybody is anxious. Everybody is with a big fatigue with this whole situation. We're getting almost the whole year, and there is a second wave coming, a possible repetition of the situation. So we are so anxious. We are also anxious about the next year, if the year will continue with the semesters will continue remotely by online, internet, or will be present. So we are very anxious about everything. We don't know what's going to happen. We know what our president or governor or mayors are going to do. So it's a weird situation we're living in, because I think in Canada, political is stable. The politics are stable in a certain sense. So different than the countries, the Latin American countries, that there is no stability at all. And so we get anxious all the time, not just about the university, not just about the curriculum and, you know, the academic activities, but about the social activities in general. Okay.
We have another question, Wilson, from Elisa. You want to go ahead and unmute?
Sure. Oh, there I am. And hi, Wilson. As a fellow Brazilian, it's really nice to hear you. One of the things that I'm wondering how things are in Guyana, because I felt quite a big difference between the federal universities from the south of Brazil and from the north of Brazil. I work very closely with folks at in Ceará, right, which is the north, and my mom's a professor in the south, and it seems like there was a lot of push back from folks in the south to say, why are we, you know, waiting? Like, everybody has the technology, so let's just get the show on the road. And in the north, the students, they would have classes and there would be 4 students because of what you're talking about, right? Like this notion of a technological poverty, which is very front and center, like you said. People don't have access to these things, right? Or easy, or sometimes they have access, but they have connectivity issues. So how do you see, because as a federal university that is regulated by one approach, right? How does that impact you, where you are, and those debates? Because I see it's very nuanced.
Well, Lisa, it's a tough question because I'm kind of a resilient person, and I cannot answer for all the universities in Brazil since I'm not updated to the news. As I said, I was in Paris, I was there in France, so I had to come back. And since I am here, I am under quarantine. I'm working just at home online. I really don't know what is happening with all the universities, and even the closest one as UNB in Brasilia, and the other ones as UFU in Minas Gerais and so on. But as to talk about the Federal University of Goiás, there is no push to open the doors. There is nothing like that. We are accepting the situation that it is dangerous. We cannot be inside a classroom in a normal situation. So we go on remotely. We're trying to do our best. And so I think that impacts me personally, because I'm trying to do my best using my study, sending everything that I have. So I scan the books. I try to help everyone because I know their situation are terrible. The situation of the students sometimes is worse than ours. Okay, so that's how it
Thank you
impacts.
for that. Yeah. And I do hear a lot of resiliency, so that's wonderful. That's what really came out of your conversation today. So thank you for that.
Sure, you're welcome.
We're running close to the end of time for questions, but we do have 2 questions lined up. One that's in the chat, so I'll just read it to you. So apparently there are inevitably technical issues when it comes to online learning. And you mentioned some of the challenges faced by Brazilian educators and students. Could you share any effective strategies to better address these problems?
Well, in personal level, I'm trying to use WhatsApp, even WhatsApp that the professors don't like to use. I had 2 or 3 students coming to my house, coming home, so with the masks, so everything at the restrictions. So I answered them, I helped them in the better way I could. But up to the university, I think that they are trying to solve the problem. The university is offering to excels in the Moodle platform, which is free and well used by some professors. I don't like the Moodle because it's so difficult to be used. And I prefer Google Classroom and other ones, but that's the problem. There are so many flaws. Last month that I have the assessment of the students, I had some notes, I have some grades that just disappeared. Yes, from the data.
Oh no.
Yes, fortunately I have written down everything. So I had the backup here.
Oh, you had a backup, old school backup. Oh, good.
Yeah, the old school, yeah, the papers is stressful.
I think sometimes that's an effective strategy too, right? Is to have a backup to your backup. So we do have one more question, but we're going to have to wait on that right now because we do have another speaker. So I thank everybody that's asked questions, and thank you, Wilson, one more time for your talk. And we're going to ask Samuel to share his screen, and we'll allow our next speaker to begin. So I'm really interested in this comparative nature of this discussion. So looking forward to listening to more about what Samuel has to say.
Thanks, Roswitha. I just wanted to say hello, and I'm sorry I missed the first half of the session. It's great to see you, Wilson, And I'm glad the session is recorded so that I can hear all the good things that you said. And so I'd like to introduce Samuel. Samuel is one of our PhD students in adult learning, and he just brings with him a wealth of expertise and real wisdom and insight. Just in, from some of the international work that he has done, and also just the experience of being international over the years for him. And so I asked him if he would share some of his perspectives that our international students might be feeling because he is with and connected in his PhD program with international students. So Samuel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Corinne, for that introduction. Sometimes you wonder whether you are the person being referred to when the introduction is so good. My name is Samuel, and I've been asked to talk about adapting in the time of COVID-19 and the impact of COVID-19 on me as a student at the University of Calgary. Let me start by situating myself. My name is Samuel Agaba Madesi, and I was born and raised in Uganda, in Africa, where my ontological and epistemological and axiological orientation started forming along the African traditional paradigms. And that is very important as we get along. I came to Canada as an international graduate student, and I have facilitated, or some people would prefer to say, I've been an instructor at the Coady International Institute of St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia for the last 15 years. I'm a leader of two momentous Canadian African Immigrant Association, some of them headquartered right here in Calgary. I'm married to a very gorgeous, very beautiful woman with two children. Sometimes I wonder what she was thinking to marry me. She is so beautiful. I'm in educational research, PhD student at Werklund School of Education, and I specialize in adult learning. Now that picture is something I started playing around with my wife and drawing, and eventually we came up with that. And the more we look at it, the more we see ourselves in what you might call a small shovel or a big spade or a small spoon. And that is us coming from wherever we've come from, Uganda and many other parts of the world, and falling into that basket. That basket is where I meet you, Wilson. This basket is where I met Colleen. In that basket is where I met so many people from so many different parts of the world, my classmates, my professors. That's where I interact with those who love me, my family, and those who don't like me too, and those who want me to go away. And so in that basket, there is the good, the bad, and the ugly. But above all, in that basket, there is COVID now. And we are trying to find out how to survive together in that basket. I can't believe how those beans or those grains can social distance, because we've been working together so closely, and now we have to separate those beans and 6 feet apart. And that is the struggle that I'm engaging in as a student, to distance myself from family, community, and everybody that I've networked with for a long time. To that note, I would like to recognize that I'm situated in my basement in Calgary and on the land of the First Nations, or the Indigenous people, and that the University of Calgary is located on the Indigenous land. I'm going to first frustrate you, annoy you, and anger you with negativities, and probably later on I could tell you a little bit about the positive side of COVID. My background is in adult education. For the last 25 years, I've been an adult educator. And right now, for the last 3 months, I have seen and prepared more PowerPoint presentations than my entire 25 years of practice as an educator. And I'm getting frustrated with PowerPoints. How do you stand 50 screens of this and not have a big headache at the end of the day? So as an adult educator, I'm very much used to sessions in class, exercises, and tools and techniques and interactive methodologies. So I'm getting stressed with PowerPoints, but I still had to prepare for you one to anger you and frustrate you. But above all, I would like to say that I'm quite adapting to PowerPoints now, because it sounds and feels like one of the best ways to do this online. The other frustration that I'm having as a student right now is is mental health. I'm concerned about my mental health and well-being. I fear that this could lead to stress, anxiety, and depression, because as a student, we are going through a lot of assignments, as you can imagine, a lot of readings, a lot of pressure, deadlines, and yet there's a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of restrictions about getting what we need in order to, to get to that goal. So there's a possibility that we might have a mental health problem, but I'm looking forward to fight that as it comes. The first sign that you're going to fight something is to recognize that something is coming up. So I'm ready. I've contacted the University of Calgary, which has an excellent program on mental health, and I have all the telephone numbers ready in case that comes up, because I think there's a lot of stress as a student. It's very hard to be a student at this time. Strain on the eyes. My entire life is now on the screen, almost nothing face-to-face anymore. Meetings are all on computers, Zoom and all that, Skype. Classes are all on screen. Discussions are all on screen. Conversations that we used to have in the hallways and everywhere in offices are all online. I can't keep up with my emails. I checked one of my inboxes, not the University of Calgary, that one has a special place in my heart, but one of my other emails, and I figured there was 1,548 unread emails. Reading emails today is a full-time job. Reading them and answering them and being nice or talking about the weather and everything. No, today I just say yes, send, no, send, okay, send. And that's how rude I'm becoming, because I don't have the time. And yes, I need to answer the emails. It's becoming a huge challenge. It's a full-time job to read all the emails. The heart, the love and affection for self and the other is quickly changing. Social distancing means no physical interaction with my classmates, who are more or less my academic family. For the history of my academic history, my classmates have been the nicest people. When I'm stressed, come to class, talk to them, laugh together, go back home, maybe everybody's gone to work. So not being able to meet physically my classmates is very challenging, and I think it has some implications on academic performance. It could be worse for international students with no family, relatives, or friends. Funds, my hands have been open for a long time to receive scholarships, but I think COVID has prioritized other things, and my hands still are open if there is any scholarship out there, because I need it as a full-time student with a family to keep things running, to keep the engine running. Fitness, whereas keeping fit is critical to my mental alertness and health and my academic performance, fitness places and machines could put me at high risk of contracting the virus. So whereas we are supposed to keep alert and be fit, we are still being challenged that the gyms and the health places could be a very good place for us to contract the virus. So I developed my own gym in the basement. I have some weights and I run around in my basement. It's getting cold outside. So that's how I'm managing some of those challenges. Let me talk about working from home. It's quite challenging too, to work from home, to do all the assignments from home. Difficulty concentrating at home with a loving family. My kids and I, you'd never think I'm the dad. We are probably brothers and sisters because we play a lot. And I have found difficult explaining that to them that, oh, that is very serious here. Please stay away. It's very hard. Missing the embodied learning, a physical classroom. I really miss that embodied learning. As an adult educator, I may not have the time to explain how much I miss that embodied learning in the classroom, but online has its own advantages, but I miss that embodied learning in the classroom. And listen to this, I cannot stop checking my fridge for eats. Lately, I have become friends with my fridge, but the experts say it's a lousy friendship. And I don't know what to do with that. More frustrations? Are you tired yet? No. The self and the other, or the othering. Slow internet. And this is especially in relation to my classmates. As everything shifts online, not the whole world is online, and not all is well because the internet is slowing down. Even in Calgary, I get frustrated sometimes where we have high-speed internet. And I wonder how the other people elsewhere are managing. My classmates' failings are equally my failings. We work together in groups and we earn the same mark. If my classmates elsewhere in the world, in Africa, in Asia, in South America, are frustrated with the internet and can't get anything done, I am frustrated too because we get the same mark, and I'm frustrated when my classmates can't do anything. Banned pages. There are pages out there that are banned or unaccepted or prohibited. In some countries where my classmates live, Google, YouTube, and many other literature sources are forbidden. And therefore they can't access the right articles they need to access to get their assignments done. And that frustrates a lot of us, including myself. And I say, hey, are you done with the job? We are supposed to meet. No, I can't access that literature because that literature, the source is banned in my country. That's very frustrating. Intellectual privileges. I fear that slow internet and of course banned pages and sources of literature for some of my classmates may create an intellectual divide and the associated digital divide. So we should be working towards solving that. But I guess right now, because of COVID, it's increasing. And I hope professors, are taking note of some of these frustrations. Academic performance. As COVID-19 numbers rise further in Calgary especially, I'm concerned about how my classmates and I will sustain our academic performance. Amidst all the annoying and frustrations, COVID-19 has taught me a few good things as well. It's not been just frustrations. There has been a beacon of hope. My online interactive skills for academic engagements have improved tremendously. The things I can do online now, I never knew how to do one or any of those. Zoom has been great. I guess we're using Zoom right now. And sometimes I feel closer to the instructor, given that the screen puts every student at the same level. Zoom and the screen, there's no injustice. There's no backbenchers making noise. There's no front desks so they can hear and talk more to the instructor. We are all at the same level, and I like that. I thought that Zoom, the breakout rooms are an incredible innovation, especially for me as an adult educator. Because as an adult educator, I would like small focus groups to, to internalize and dig deeper analysis of content. The chat rooms have been great. Asking questions, is another excellent opportunity for engaging the instructor and peers at any time without having to wait for the chance to talk. I've also liked D2L. Is yet another creative innovation I have used to engage my peers in discussions of interest to our learning. After class, whenever, over the weekend, we can always engage in D2L, and I think I've liked that. I've used Moodle in the past in my other teachings at Cenefax, but I like D2L too. It's very good and it's getting better and better every day. I am in the process of rethinking my research design, especially my method of data collection, to suit a creative online design, because I figure COVID is here for a long time. I don't see any signs right now. I know that probably the US is talking about the antidote, but I figure it's here for a while. And by the time I start my research, I'm pretty sure COVID will still be around. So I'm already trying to think about how to design my study, especially the data collection, online. And lastly, I'm not a prophet. If you look at me, I'm not a prophet, nor am I related to one, but I suspect that when COVID-19 is all clear, I won't be surprised that there is discomfort going back to physical classrooms. And I believe there will be an element of blended courses. Lastly, hats off for international students. We come with different and unique lived experiences from what we experience here. Our ontological and epistemological and axiological orientations are different from what we encounter here. Our educational systems are different from those we navigate here. Amidst all these challenges, when COVID-19 hit us, international students were the last bunch to get a little help. And yet, with little or no help to navigate COVID-19, you, international students, demonstrated resiliency and continued and finished your programs. Some of you still continuing. You surprised me by continuing to pay almost double the tuition fees that Canadian students pay. My hat is off for you, international students. Thank you so much. And that's it for me.
Thank you very, very much, Sam. You're such a great speaker and very wise. And you also have a great sense of humor. And I really like that. You keep me on my toes, that's for sure. And, as I look at the list of people who are online, we have a number of international students in this session. So you spoke for them as well. And I'm sure that that was really appreciated. So we've got a little bit of time. Any comments or any questions for Samuel that you would like to pose? And Jude and Eustacia will kind of keep an eye to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak.
Timothy just wanted to let you know that he also has a poor relationship with his fridge. And I would say my relationship with my fridge is toxic right now. Yeah. Eliza has a question. If you want to go ahead, Eliza.
I have a comment, and
Okay.
I really appreciate, Samuel, that you're so candid about your experience, about how this is affecting our students. I think as an instructor, I've been feeling a very similar, weight how it has impacted students, and it's so important to have that voice, so that because I think that as instructors, we do have to really be careful and attend to the well-being of our students, because if the students are not well, they can do good work, right? So I thank you for showing, what the challenges are, because for many this may not be in their radar. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, and it sounds like you're doing beautiful work. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Elisa.
I just want to share a comment from the chat box. I don't know who, but there's participant said, "Wow, Wilson and Samuel, you are both amazing. Wow, so glad to be here." Just want to let you know.
And Lily would like to ask a question. If she wants to unmute, just go ahead.
Yes, I'm a student, but I'm also a professor at Brandon University. And I know, being from Colombia, as a professor, is hard for me, like, not being able to interact with my students, and the touchy-feely kind of society that I come from, and now being in Code Red, where we're unable to do less, so the gyms are closed and everything is closed. So I know for me it has been difficult, and I do have students that they come from different countries, and some of them, they are like 13 hours away from me when I'm teaching, and they also are experiencing that. Is like they were saying, online learning is not for everyone. Like we miss that interaction. We miss, even though we have those breakout rooms, but we miss being with that person there. So one of the things that I have done is, like, I always connect in class like 20 minutes before, so then people can come in and just mingle and we can just chat. And then I leave it like 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, so then we are still chatting or asking questions. So we get that kind of like interaction that we are all craving. But thank you both for an amazing presentation.
Lily, I just want you to know that, oops, I'm getting a big echo here. There we are. Lily, I just want you to know there's a number of us here who are not from Colombia, who are also very touchy-feely. So we're missing the same thing in terms of the relational, for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to ask a question to Samuel. Is it possible?
Oh, for sure, Wilson. Go ahead.
Okay, Samuel, you were talking about the improvement you had in using all the gadgets, the technology, and so on. Well, that happened with me. I never used social media for teaching, for reaching the students and so on. But now I see myself looking for the best camera, because next year I'm going to offer a circle of conference about Rousseau, and I'm going to use the YouTube. So I'm seeing myself as I'm feeling myself as a YouTuber. So my question to you is, do you think this challenge, this push we have, is kind of a challenge? This challenge is an improvement or an obstacle?
I would say every challenge comes with a way to go around it, and at the end of the day, you may actually gain skills, because I would sound very annoying to some people if I ever say that COVID-19 has brought some good things. But the actual truth, the reality of it, is that perhaps if COVID-19 had not hit us, I would never learn some of the skills that I've learned. I am also, Wilson, I am also looking for a very good camera, and there's a section of the basement where I want to create a studio and start shooting YouTube and continue educating the world. I've been an educator all my life, 25 years so far, and I just can't stop. I like interacting with people, but I find myself right now squeezed in my house, and the only time I interact is Zoom in class and my other meetings. But I would like to continue interacting with people that I used to go to physically and talk to, and I want to continue teaching. So I think COVID-19 has brought another opportunity to do things differently, and we just have to learn those skills. it was an obstacle, but we are trying to go around it and find ways to keep going. When COVID-19 had just hit, I was accepted at the university. I thought when I applied to the university, I thought I was going to be a full-time student, going to campus every day, sitting in a classroom. I never thought I would be online or on computers and screens. But I really appreciate the way the university and the Werklund and the whole university, tried to shift courses from face-to-face to online. That was, wow. I'm like, wow. I kept watching the emails coming in. There were updates. We are trying. These courses were face-to-face, but we're trying to shift them online. And I can imagine the difficulty, because for the last 25 years, I've been an instructor too. And I don't know what I would do within a few months between April and September to shift from classroom, all the exercises, all the games, and, find a way of teaching them online. It's a huge job, but that's how we go around pandemics, I guess. Thanks for asking, Wilson.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with you. I just think that in this situation we are facing now, what we must have on our head, on our mind, is that we cannot change the logic of our work. All the technology, all the gadgets we have to buy and have to use. Okay, it's okay. They are helpful and so on. But we cannot change the logic, because teaching, the role of professor is to be present, to be there for the students. I think that.
And actually, I think in one of my classes, we emphasize in 700, we emphasize, please put your camera on. We want to see you. We want to see a little bit of that embodiment. I know it's different from a physical classroom, but we say put your camera on. We don't like muted cameras. We want to see how you talk, moving these hands. We want to see your eyes. We want to see how serious you are. We want to attach that seriousness on the face with what you're saying. So I think I appreciate the technology, the Zoom. I think it brings us close to face-to-face. It's not face-to-face, but the cameras create an impression that this is face-to-face. I can see you. I can see your emotions. I can see your embodiment, and that helps.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam, and thanks, Wilson, for the question. I'd just like to make a couple of comments before we go. I strongly believe that we can be present in many ways. Some people might be physically present in their teaching, but still not fully engaged. Some professors may be on the online medium and be fully present. So I think we need to think differently about learning spaces. One of the things that you mentioned, Sam, was about the equity, the level playing field in the online environment, where nobody's talking over the other. Everyone has that pathway to communicate. They have time to reflect. I've also seen some incredible pedagogy taken up in the online environment. We were very—
It's 4 o'clock.
Oops, my computer talks to me every hour. We've also been very fortunate in Werklund because we have lots of experience in online. So although we had to turn it around quickly, we had the expertise to move the face-to-face into the online environment. So much so that we were asked by other faculties to help them to do that because they didn't have that same experience. I see that Jude in the chat box has listed Samuel and Wilson's email. Jude, will you also put your email in there as well? And because we've recorded this session, and if you know of anyone who wanted to come today but who wasn't able to attend, please contact Jude and we'll have the recording there. So I just want to thank Samuel and Wilson for your generosity of time and your expertise and your passion. You continue to make a big impact. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank Jude and Eustasia for the organization of the session. I don't know what we would do without the two of you. And also a big thanks to Roswitha, a colleague that I dearly love and respect, for just being so generous with her time when I had a conflict with another meeting, that she took the lead for the first half of the session. I'd just like to end by telling you to watch your emails, because in February during Diversity Days, we are going to be offering other sorts of opportunities like this, along the lines of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and, you know, also capturing the great expertise that we have right here at the University of Calgary. So blessings to all of you. Please stay safe and healthy. And thank you for being such wonderful students and colleagues.